This is TAU Unbound, the English language podcast of Tel Aviv University. Please welcome your host, Ido Aharoni, Tel Aviv University's graduate, member of the Board of Governors, lecturer, writer, and veteran diplomat.
Welcome to TAU Unbound, the English language podcast of Tel Aviv University. I'm your host, Ido Aharoni, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Maureen Adiri, the director of the International School at Tel Aviv University. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Ido. Very happy to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you because you're playing such an important role in this university. But before we go into your professional portfolio, tell us about yourself a little bit. I'm very curious about, the name Maureen. Where were you born?
So I was born in Geneva, Switzerland, to an Italian mom and a Swiss father from Zurich. So Maureen is Irish, has nothing to do neither with Switzerland nor with Italy.
Are you named after someone in particular?
No, they like the name.
What can you tell us about your family background?
So I grew up in Geneva in an amazing family, very comfortable, loving setting. My father is a lawyer. I have two younger brothers. And they're still most of the time there, although my parents, in the meantime, made Aliyah. So they're spending more and more time here with me in Israel, which is really wonderful.
Now, I've been to Geneva several times, actually, before I became a diplomat. And I remember a very cosmopolitan city with a great deal of influence from the Middle East. I remember all the Arabic language signs in Geneva, mostly banks. Of course, you have the United Nations institutions in Geneva and so on. Did that affect the way you were brought up?
So I have to say that we were in our little bubble. We weren't that affected by the international organization setting in Geneva. The banks we were. Most of my friends in the surrounding were either in the bank or the watches or these kind of businesses growing up in Switzerland. I did get more involved with that while I was studying for my law degree in Geneva, and I interned with a UN Watch. And I spent quite a lot of time at the UN during that time.
So I would assume, as someone who interned with the United Nations Watch, which is a watchdog organization that is examining the workings of the United Nations, that you were exposed to the less pleasant aspects of Israel's positioning in the world. Can you share with us a little bit about what you learned at UN Watch?
Absolutely. I entered in a very naive way, studying law, thinking that I could support work with the UN. And what I found is really an organization that was extremely biased towards Israel. Very strong feelings of hate, at least in the settings when they were being filmed. And what happened that was really interesting is that the minute no one was filming, everyone was extremely pleasant suddenly with the Israeli delegates, and you could see that there's something much more complex and interesting going on in terms of the dynamics there that made me extremely curious to understand a little bit more about Israel and its place in the world.
Now, you have a very unique perspective about Israel, having being brought up in Switzerland. What would you say are the main strengths of Israel, if Israel was a human being?
Yeah. I have to say that I'm always fascinated to discover Israel every single day where I wake up here. I find other traits that are really fascinating. Definitely a superpower because it's almost magic what's happening here in Israel. When you look at the surrounding and the complexities around Israel, the fact that we're able to thrive this way is absolutely fascinating to me. I would say that it's a very interesting personality as a human being, of a mix of modern, looking forward constantly and thriving for better, but at the same time complaining all the time about what's going on, and a lot about the Jewish roots when you read in the books. very much what you feel about Israel.
Shimon Peres famously said that the biggest invention that the Jews gave to humanity is dissatisfaction. And I totally agree with that. So, and that's very different than Switzerland.
Absolutely.
Right. In what way? What was so different moving from Switzerland to Israel?
So many things were different in the level of comfort, in the routine that's always the same, the worries of the people, what's important to them. I would say that moving here, I found a new meaning in life that's very hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it, of being able to have an impact, of being able to experience life in a much more significant way that I didn't feel in Switzerland. It was very comfortable, very pleasant, amazing to be able to travel around so easily, something that here, with the neighbors we have, is more challenging. But in terms of looking for meaning in life, it's a very different experience to be here in Israel.
Now, obviously, you grew up in a family that was extremely devoted to Israel, to Jewish identity, and my understanding also to Tel Aviv University. There's a strong connection. What was the reason for you to actually, what clinched it for you? What was the reason for you to actually move to Israel?
So growing up, we spent Passover in Israel every year. That was really my connection. We used to enjoy the beach, to say words like avatiach. We felt very proud to say words like this. But we didn't really experience it as Israelis at all. We were the tourists, as you see them on the beach, in the sun, having a good time for 10 days and going back home. And then there was a level of experience of looking at it like you would say the Jewish agency wants to sell it to us, or how we're the ones supporting Israel so that Israel will thrive, so that Israel will grow, and how they need the diaspora for this to happen. And then what happened is that I was working in a law firm in Zurich. I was with a group of other Jewish lawyers doing my work. I started getting more and more Israeli clients because for some of them it was more difficult. The difference in culture between Israelis and Swiss was more difficult. And I started working more and more with them. And I said that I should really go and study some Hebrew to be able to work even better with them. I really absolutely love the connection with my Israeli clients.
And you already knew the word avatiach, which means watermelon.
I knew the word avatiach. I knew how to say watermelon. I came here. I went to Ulpan Akiva in Netanya. And I started to learn a few additional words. Growing up in Switzerland, I learned quite a few languages before that, including Latin for 7 years. So learning an additional language was not too difficult, and I really enjoyed every minute. And the truth is that I suddenly felt very much at home. I felt intrigued. I felt in love. I felt many new feelings. And from that moment onwards, it was pretty clear to me that this is the place I wanna stay. No one knew that yet, but I did.
But you did.
But I did.
Well, that's a perfect segue to your current role, because what you're describing is a change in the relationship, right? You said when you were a kid, at least in the eyes of your family, Israel was the needy brother or sister, and the diaspora Jewry was expected to help the needy member of the family. But after spending time in Ulpan Akiva, you actually realized that Israel can also represent an opportunity, not just a problem. And that brings us to your current job. Tell us a little bit about your current job.
Right. So you're absolutely correct that I was suddenly amazed by how independent and thriving this place was. And I decided to do my second master's in conflict resolution here in Hebrew. I enjoyed every single minute of it. I learned things in a very different way than what I had learned doing my first 2 degrees in Switzerland. And then I thought that it might be an interesting opportunity for us to try to get more people from abroad to come and experience similar things than what I had the privilege of doing myself. But for that, we needed to get a few programs to be taught in English because it is very challenging to study in a foreign language. So I
And by the way, how many languages do you speak? I'm assuming
7.
French. 7. Tell us which ones. That's amazing.
Speak German, French, English, Hebrew, some Italian, some Spanish, some Arabic.
Amazing. So definitely you're the perfect person for the job with all the languages that you but you were able to complete a master's degree in Hebrew, although it was not your native tongue. Amazing.
After 6 months of being in Israel, I did that. But what makes me even happier is that I was able to make it more accessible for people from around the world. And really, I think what I felt very strongly is that we're a generation that's privileged to be able to have an impact on the state of Israel, which is such a young place that has still so much to grow. And we, as new immigrants, as Olim, have so much to contribute. And really, from the moment I decided to stay here, beyond wanting to find my husband here, which I was very successful at doing, I knew that I wanted to have an impact on Israel in any place I could. And I found a place where I had an advantage because I had experienced it myself, because I know languages, because I'm interested also in diplomacy and in connections with the world. And then the idea started of bringing the world to Tel Aviv University.
And so you built a family, which is a very big contribution to the state of Israel. You built a family here, which is amazing. And now you're cultivating ties between Tel Aviv University and the rest of the world. Let's start with the challenges. What are the main challenges that you're facing in your job?
I think that like any other non-English speaking country, doing the process of internationalization is a language challenge to start with. When you think of a place like Australia or the UK, who can simply open up their doors to the world and get people from around the world joining, Hebrew is a very niche language with almost nobody speaking it. And switching to English for the entire system is a challenge. And it's one that we're pushing and improving yearly. And yet, it's not easy. It's not easy for the administration, and it's not easy for the systems. It's not easy for the professors. There's a lot of adaptation that needs to happen to make us a real international surrounding. Say that's one challenge.
Yet, I would say places like Egypt, I know that there are scores of international students studying Arabic in Cairo. And many of them are Jewish students, by the way. And I always ask them, what's wrong with studying Arabic at Tel Aviv University or Italy? I'm not so sure that their English proficiency is higher than Israel. So there must be another challenge beyond the language.
There are challenges of the perception from youngsters around the world. On one hand, of whether this is a place only for Jews, which of course it is absolutely not. And at Tel Aviv University, we thrive for diversity and to get students from around the world with different backgrounds. And the second is an issue of security that very often comes from the parents and not only the prospective students themselves. And what's really interesting is that so often one of the first things we hear from the students once they're here is that they feel safe. It would be one of the first words they would say, whereas before coming, this is definitely one of the fears that make them hesitate to decide to come here.
According to your assessment, how many students would you say come to Israel collectively, to all the universities and the colleges in Israel every year from abroad?
About 15,000, give or take, if you count also the yeshivot. If only the academic settings, probably about 10,000.
That's a big increase. That's a big increase from what the numbers that I remember. I remember when we started with the looking at the issue of study abroad in North America, I think the number was under 3,000. But that's a big improvement. What do you think is the realistic potential of Israel? So let's say 10,000 is what we're getting now. How many students do you think, again, collectively, not just Tel Aviv U, all the universities and the colleges combined, what do you think is the capacity?
I know that we're looking to double the number of international students. And in a regular year, of course, COVID for the last few years changed the data a lot. We would have between 2,000 and 2,500 international students here. So we're looking to double this. I know that our colleagues in the other universities are also looking to grow their international student numbers significantly. I would assume that everybody has more or less the same intention of doubling.
Now, I'm sure, and of course, knowing you a little bit, your personality is so outgoing and so loving and so welcoming. I'm sure you have great stories to share with us about success stories of how foreign students actually connected with this place. Can you share with us some of those stories?
Sure. We've really, over the years, and I've been doing this already for quite some years now, we've seen situations of students, of course, deciding to stay in Israel, many of them, connecting in unique ways. We've seen them doing volunteering opportunities and connecting with, the earth and doing things like the pioneers at the creation of Israel to build and to impact. We've seen students coming from a very different perspective of approaching coexistence and looking at it from a more political side and understanding the complexities of this place and being able to go back home with a much more nuanced and smarter approach to Israel and what it is. We've really seen everything, many couples that we were able to see coming together here in Israel.
Wow, that's impressive. So people that actually met here, got together, and formed a family together.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Would you say that the geopolitical issue is a magnet or is it a repellent?
It's a little bit of both. The first program that I studied and then developed was in conflict resolution and mediation. So I would say that in that field, it's a magnet. It's one of the only places in the world where you can go to a conflict zone that's so safe, where you can really feel like you're in it. And at the same time, you're not really taking any risks. So there is something extremely unique about experiencing the conflict here. And also being able to meet so many stakeholders during your time that you're spending here. Israel is so small and interconnected, and Tel Aviv University has so many opportunities to bring those people to the table and get them to meet the students, that really, as a student here, you can be exposed to so much. On the other hand, it's true that whenever there's an issue in terms of the situation, the security situation here, it has an impact for us over the next few months, if not years. That's something we have to deal with. Again, very often, those who suffer more from that are the parents than the students themselves.
Right, especially when, Tel Aviv is under attack, rockets are falling from the sky, and
Right.
parents are freaking out, and rightly so. That's as a parent, I know how
But listen
stressful.
to that. I've never seen students as excited as those who could enter in the shelters during those attacks and do selfies. You know what a selfie is?
No, what is
It's
a
a
shelter?
selfie in the shelter. So that was one of the words they invented. They were extremely, they felt like heroes, They're here, they're in a shelter. And at the same time, again, thank God, we stay pretty safe even in those moments. So
Yes, and I would assume that there is a strong interface for the foreign students, between the fact that we are Tel Aviv University and we are in the city of Tel Aviv. So the interface between the campus life and the city's nightlife probably is a big plus.
the nightlife, also the cultural life, the amount of events that happen here, of exhibits. It is really a very unique city in the warmth in what it offers, and definitely one of the draws for students to decide to come here. As
So
a city.
we must assume that many of the people that are listening to us right now never been to Israel. And many of them are parents, the students in the United States alone. There are 21 million students. I don't know how many students we have in Canada and Europe and so on. But we're talking about many, many people that could consider a study abroad at Tel Aviv U. What would you say to them to ease their concerns, to do your little elevator pitch to bring them to Tel Aviv U?
I would say that they'll probably have the time of their lives in a very safe environment with a very experienced team used to dealing with any feeling of fear they might have while they're here. We've been doing that for over 60 years at this point, welcoming students from around the world to come here. We have a team here 24/7 available for them for any issue they might have. And the day-to-day life here is absolutely fabulous. The level of academics is very, very high. Our professors are exceptional. The surrounding is fascinating, and you really get to meet the next entrepreneur in the elevator when you walk around Tel Aviv, which is amazing. It's a system that has no hierarchy. So the chances of really getting in touch with interesting people here is extremely high.
Well, this is a wonderful, optimistic, and high note to end our little podcast. I'd like to tell our listeners that we're going to have your email address provided to them in case they're interested in coming to Tel Aviv University to study or just to experience the campus. If someone wants just to visit, that's fine. I had students here, one from North Carolina and the other one, I think, from Iowa. They came just for a 5-day course at the business school.
What I would love to add is that in addition to welcoming international students here, we also have many opportunities for collaborations and partnerships. We have partnerships with universities around the world. We build customized programs. We have research opportunities for PhDs and postdocs in wonderful labs here, and many chances for collaborations. Also, if someone who's listening to us is from a university somewhere around the world looking to partner with Tel Aviv University as a whole, there are multiple opportunities also for us to...
Absolutely. And I would add to that Tel Aviv University is the home of the largest international film festival for students that was established back in 1986 when I went to the film school here. So that kind of revealed how old I am. But Maureen, it was such a pleasure. I think that you are doing a wonderful job, and you are the epitome, really, of the success of Israel and Tel Aviv University in attracting people of high quality, and in your case also devotion and passion for what you do. So thank you for everything that you do, and I'm sure that under your guidance, the school will double and triple its size in years to come. And to our listeners back home, thank you for being with us. And until the next episode, goodbye from Tel Aviv.
This is TAU Unbound, the English language podcast of Tel Aviv University. Please welcome your host, Ido Aharoni, Tel Aviv University's graduate, member of the Board of Governors, lecturer, writer, and veteran diplomat.